Hello everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's video lesson, we're going to be going over red. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, red is, to me, is one of the scary colors in the color palette because you think red is red, red is red. Well, it's not, because red can lean towards orange and red can lean towards violet, and with the type of painting that I do, especially when working with portraits, red is something that I need to understand. So red is one of those scary things. And it wasn't until learning about the pigment numbers when I was going to art school that, you know, that's the key to understanding color, knowing what's in it. I'm going to show you an example on another card that I did. Now, I pre-did these to save time because the actual interactive lessons I want to do, I'm going to work on darkening red by not just using black, but using complements, and also choosing the red for a basic portrait color. And portraits is something we're going to cover in a completely different lesson because it's quite extensive. So what I did for this one here, I did some charts, and I'll bring the colors out so you can see. So they look, actually if I stand them up, they look relatively the same. These are clear containers, and other than this one, they look relatively the same, right? Well, I've already proven in previous lessons and other lessons that to see the true underlying color, add white, and you can see they are very, very different. So for this one here, this is Napthol Red, and it's the Traditions, and it's PR 170, and it's a semi-transparent. You'd never know it. It looks opaque. By adding white to it, you can see that it's a red that leans a bit more towards violet. Then you've got Pyrrole Red, which is the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics, also a semi-transparent, PR 254. This one was a bit more transparent. I had to add 2 layers. But adding white to that, it just shows me that it does lean a bit towards the blue, but it's a little bit dull. Okay, so for soft, dusty roses, that would be a good mixture. Napthol AS Hue, same thing here. It's a red that almost looks like it leans a bit more towards the blue. And for the record, I don't use all these reds. There's 2 reds that actually 3 that I use. Cadmium Red Hue. Now in the fluid acrylics, it's a mixture of PR 112 and PW6. That's why they look the same, because Napthol AS Hue is PR 112. So you technically wouldn't even need to buy this. You could just have Napthol AS Hue and do that. But before you jump, pull out your credit card to go shopping, watch the whole lesson to see, that you don't need all these colors. Then you have the trusty old Napthol Red Light with an asterisk because this is in my palette. Now for an acrylic, this is a non-toxic. These are all non-toxic acrylics. In oils, I have used Napthol Red Light, but I prefer Cadmium Red Light. I avoid using toxic pigments with acrylics because depending if you're working on a mixed media or something, you may want to sand it. You cannot get any of those toxic pigments, cadmiums, into the air, dust particles, because they're extremely toxic when you inhale them. But these are all non-toxic. So for acrylics, I prefer using the non-toxic pigments. Oils, the likelihood that I'm going to sand an oil painting is non-existent. So I can go with the cadmium colors for that, which are very, very strong. But I also do have the non-toxic versions. Then I just have black and white in here. Okay, and I take the black and I grade it down a bit. So now if I go on to the other side, before I show you the chart, these look violet, don't they? Well, they're not a violet pigment, they're a red pigment. These look brown. They are a red pigment also. So looks can be deceiving. So we have transparent red iron oxide. Yes, one of my favorites. Brown madder. I don't use it very often, but it does make pretty mixes. Quinacridone violet, Quinacridone magenta. These 2 are the exact same pigment. And then permanent alizarin crimson. And the permanent alizarin crimson is different across brands. And you do not want to use a true alizarin crimson because it's fugitive, which means it will fade over time. So you want to use a mixture. Now, DecoArt has taken PR 177 which is the closest match to an alizarin crimson that they came up with. And then in oils, other companies would do the same thing. So if you ever see like a true alizarin crimson, you don't want to buy that because it'll fade. Look at these colors. Look at these colors. Now, yeah, they look a little bit violet, right? But they are red. Transparent red iron oxide is transparent. Use it all the time in mixed media and for landscapes. PR 101. But look what happens when you add white. You get a flesh tone. Okay, this is the first time I've done this because I've never even considered transparent red iron oxide for portrait painting. And I'm looking at this thinking, oh my God, this is so simple. and as soon as I did that, I said, I have got to do this exercise, the interactive exercise in the next part to show you this part. Brown matter PR 175. It's a semi-transparent. It's okay. And, for florals, adding some pink tones. Then we have the Quinacridone violets, and they are the same pigment. So these are the same. One's with the DecoArt Traditions, and one is with the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylic. So they're interchangeable. And then permanent alizarin crimson. So this is a red that leans a bit more towards the blue, but not as much as these. So permanent alizarin crimson is in my limited palette. Then I have these. So depending on what I'm painting, if I'm painting a portrait, like a typical portrait, I'll use permanent alizarin crimson. If I'm painting something with floral, I'll use Quinacridone violet. Rarely do I use these two together in the same palette. Not saying I never would, but I rarely do. Okay, so let's do the first exercise with color mixing red, and let's darken a red. When you say darken a red, y'all might think, oh, well, add black. Well, we're going to do that. We're going to take Napthol Red Light, which is in my limited palette. So Napthol Red Light and permanent alizarin crimson and Quinacridone Violet or Quinacridone Magenta. Okay, so this is in my limited palette. This one's in my limited palette. And then these ones are in my limited palette as an alternative, depending on what I'm painting. And these are so strong. These will last you a really, really long time. Same thing with oils. The cadmium colors will last you a really long time. Okie dokie smoky. So I'm going to use a round brush for this one. So Napthol Red Light, a beautiful red, straight on. It's a very powerful red. It leans towards orange on the spectrum. And I'm doing an experimenting with how I'm laying out my paints to see how well they I can keep my palette clean. Okay, so with white, it's kind of like a peachy, it's a red that definitely leans towards the orange. And I'm going to do this exercise now on your own. Use whatever reds you have so you know what you can get with them. And it will just help the future lessons be a little bit easier. And Napthol Red Light is a pigment that is not overpriced. But you can see how far this goes for the tinting strength. Okay, I can go on and on and on. Well, let's say we want to make it darker. Okay, well, let's try darkening it first with black. I'm going to add a speck of black, which is too much already, but let's go to the extreme. And what have I always said when you can't see a true underlying color? You got to add white. On its own, it looks all right, and if I tilt it, I can see a bit where it's transparent. It looks a little bit of a rusty color. We already know that eyes can be deceiving, so let's really see what this will give us. Oh, that's really nice. I'm looking at this and oh yeah, I can picture this being a shadow color in a portrait. Easy peasy. You wouldn't use it all over the place, but it's a good color for that. And yeah, this laying it out this way didn't really save any space. Okay, Okay, really, 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 really pretty. Let's get some more white. And it's got some good tinting strength. I can go on and on and on this way. So, okay, so, you know, most of us have black and white in our palette, so it's not like we have to go out and buy an extra thing of paint. Well, we can also darken by going to the color next to it on the color wheel. Well, on the color wheel, the color next to to Napthol Red Light, looking at the chart, something that's darker would be Pyrrole Red. Well, let's go even further. Let's darken with Permanent Alizarin Crimson. And Permanent Alizarin Crimson is this one here. So we're going to take this and we're going to darken it with this. Let's see what happens. It's not only going to darken, it's going to make a new color. I'm putting this on here, but because we have limited space, I'm going to get a little swatch card. And I'm going to take white and put it here. So adding black dulled it, but darkening it with the color next to it on the color wheel didn't dull it. It did darken, but it didn't dull it. So if I take that and I look at the charts, so it's right in between those two, this one and this one. So if I look at Napthol Red Light, these ones here, yep, it did darken it a little bit. And it also shifted it a little bit more to the blue side. Is it strong for tinting? Yeah, it is actually. Now, I'm not saying that darkening it with black is wrong. If you're looking for a dull red, then yeah, you could use black. And looking at it now for a portrait, depending on what I'm painting, like for a really dark, yeah, that would work better than this. And pick up a bit more white. Tinting strength, very strong. Okay, well, if you've been doing the exercises, you've gone through the color theory lessons, we know that, or you may not know this, maybe your first time watching this, complements on the color wheel, complementary colors, also neutralize. Well, the complements to red is green. Well, we're going to do that exercise using phthalo green, then we're going to create a green mixture with ultramarine blue and Hansa yellow light, and then phthalo blue and Hansa yellow light. And you can refer to the color mixing greens video for this. So we're going to take Napthol Red Light and a so small amount of phthalo green. I'm going to take just a smidgen more. Oh, too much. Too much. Interesting. At first glance, it looks similar to that, but it's a bit more brown. Well, if we take white, oh, we see that, no, it's still got some red in it. It's a pretty red. So eyes could be deceiving. Let's go with the tinting strength to see how far this can go. Yeah, it's got some power to it. So looking at it up here, by adding the white to it, it does look like it's still intense and not dull, like when you add carbon black to it. Well, what if we make a mixture? Because, you know, green can be made with blue and yellow, depending on what blue and what yellow. So let's make a bright green. Then we'll add some red to it. And if the green that you made is more on the blue side, then you're going to get a completely different color. Oh, I have a bit too much water in my brush. Oh, this is really different. Look at that. Wow. That's really different. Not at all. So taking this here, not at all. And I know why, because I know my pigments. So Napthol Red Light is a red that leans towards orange. Okay? Ultramarine Blue is a blue that leans towards violet. Looking at your color wheel, look at what's opposite of violet. Got the oranges and the yellows. So in this, we've got our oranges and yellows in there. Wow. So what if we took a bit more red in there? So if we took a bit more red, so it was less green, we'll put that right there. And then we'll add white to it. See how far you can go with this? There you go. I can do this all day, and I learn something new every single time. See the difference? Just by shifting it, by adding a little bit of red. Now, Ultramarine Blue and Hansa Yellow Light, colors in my palette. I'm not having to go out and buy these extra colors. It's a standard color in my palette. Okay, well, let's do this again now, but we'll use Phthalo Blue and Hansa Yellow Light. Well, I'm going to take the yellow because the Phthalo Blue is like super powerful. Wowzers, that's really strong. When I'm doing portraits, when I want to neutralize a red, a green is a really good option of doing that. Why I did that is, I don't know. Okay, looking at this, it looks very similar to this, but it looks a little bit more brown. Okay, let's add a bit of white. There we go. So I'm looking at that, and yep, it's neutralizing. It's a little bit more brown. It's a little bit more brown, and I'm looking at it. It looks like it's got a little bit more blue in it, and it looks like it's got a little bit more blue in it because Phthalo Blue is a very, very strong pigment. Okay, well, let's shift that by adding a little bit more red. Mix the whole thing in there. Go. So yeah, that's a dusty color. That I can see in a portrait. Animal fur as well. If you've got like a reflective light, that would look really, really nice. And there we go. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say this is plus Napthol Red Light. So we have Napthol Red Light, Carbon Black, Permalizarin Crimson. Then you got Phthalo Green, Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Blue, Hansa. So 7 pigments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pigments, and you get all these. And you can go even further because you can take the mixtures, add more blue, add more yellow, to go on and on and on. Black is a color I don't use a lot. I don't use it a lot. And I'm looking here and I'm saying, okay, well, this and this are similar. The only difference is that the red that's darkened with black is dull, where the red that's darkened with Ultramarine Blue and Hansa Yellow Light, it's not as dull. It's still got some color, but not as dull. I could turn around in this one here if I wanted to dull this down a bit more, I would just add a little bit more of the ultramarine blue and Hansa yellow light. So probably something in between these two. And I can get something pretty neutral. Okay, so again, so you don't have to buy all these colors. Like I can go to the art store downtown. I can see all these colors on the shelf, and you know, good quality paints at, you know, between $8 to $12 a pop. My budget would run out really quickly, and Joe would be really, really upset. Just learn what the pigments are, what you can do, and spend some time color mixing. All right. So I'm going to clean this up, and I'm so excited to do this next part. I want to show you a very, very basic mixture for portrait colors using transparent red iron oxide, Napthol red light, yellow oxide, and some white. All right, before we get into the basic portrait mixture, I want to go through this as well, because we did the darkening of red, and we need to do the lightening of red. So I'm going to be doing the lightening of red with the yellow with the Napthol red light and the permanent alizarin crimson. Now the permanent alizarin crimson, we didn't do a darkening exercise on that, which I'll also do. I won't do it on camera, but I'll do it separate. So we have Napthol red light. Okay, and so we already know that lightning. It is so much easier doing these charts with a round brush. Okay, so we know, and I don't know why I did this, because I'm doing it here again. Oh, silly me. Okay. So this is really pointless, but let's see how far we can take this. I wasn't paying attention. And then when my brush leaves the camera, I'm just blotting it on a paper towel. Okay, so that's not too bad. We got some good ranges there. Okay. So if we want to take Hansa yellow light as the medium to lighten Napthol red light, you automatically know that when you add yellow to red, you're going to get some type of orange. It's not really that intense, so let me just bring that down a bit more. Not much lighter, I should say. See, it becomes more orange. It is lighter, becomes more orange. There is going to be a segment on orange, because orange is one of those things where I'm not a fan of mixing. I like using pure for certain things. So let's take some white. Oh, interesting, interesting. Yeah, interesting. I'm seeing portrait colors. And I'm mentioning portrait colors because we talk about wildlife and landscape. When red, I mean, other than flowers, there really isn't much red. You know, houses and still lifes, that's fine. But when I look at that, instinct, right up off the bat, portrait colors. Okay, so that was with using Hansa yellow light. Well, Hansa yellow light is a yellow that leans towards green. You can almost say it's like a cool yellow. I'm going to switch brushes because I don't want to contaminate that. So now we're going to lighten it with Indian yellow. Now, if you don't know already, do a Google search on how Indian yellow actually was originally manufactured. And I think I got these in reverse. I've got these in reverse. Where's the darker one? Oh, hold on. I think I have that in reverse. I think I have that. They're so close. This is the lighter one. Oopsie. I'll get that after. What did I pick up? I picked up this one, which is Diarylide yellow. So we'll do Diarylide yellow first. So it's kind of like a a sunshine color. Diarylide yellow is semi-transparent, which means the red is going to just knock it out of the park. It is lighter, and we know it goes towards orange. And it is a much more visual orange versus this one here. Because Diarylide yellow and Indian yellow are yellow that lean towards orange, that's why this is much more orange. So you're taking Napthol Red Light, which is a red that leans towards yellow, leans towards orange, and you're taking a yellow that leans towards orange. So that's why it's so strong this way. I think I got that right. Now, if we take Indian yellow, so look up where Indian yellow, where it came from originally. It's not made that way anymore. It's not made that way anymore. Now, Indian yellow is transparent, which means the red is going to be very, very strong. Okay, let's add some white to that. Very different. Very different. It's more neutral. It's not as intense as using Diarylide yellow. When I'm painting with oils, I do have a sunshine color in my palette. And what is it called? Cadmium yellow medium is one that I use. I think I forgot to add white to that. Cadmium yellow medium I've used, but for the acrylics, I'm thinking I would probably lean towards more of the Diarylide yellow. See? Very, very different. So this one here looks closer than this one. These two here look pretty close. This stands out on its own. I already have Hansa Yellow Light in my palette as one of my core pigments. There's really no need to have Indian Yellow in there because they are close. So that's why I have Hansa Yellow Light and Diarylide Yellow if I need that sunshine color. If I need it, I can do it with that. I will not get a beautiful crisp orange using Hansa Yellow Light with Napthol Red Light. Okay, so with the Diarylide Yellow, that's where I get something really pretty with that yellow and the Napthol Red Light. And for oranges, I have a video that's going to be specifically for that. So I'm going to clean this up, and we're going to repeat the exact same exercise for permanent alizarin crimson, and this is where we're going to see some really interesting mixtures. Okay, so now I'm using permanent alizarin crimson, and we're going to lighten it with Hansa Yellow Light. We're going to also lighten it with titanium white and Indian yellow and Diarylide yellow. On face value, these look very similar, but they're not. The transparencies are different as well. So the permanent alizarin crimson is a red that leans towards blue. Again, didn't need to do both, so I'm just going to use this opportunity to test the tinting strength. And because we already did another chart with this exercise is really kind of pointless because we've already done it. But let's see how far we can go. I'm doing this very quickly so we can get to the other goodies. So it is a pretty red, and especially, and it's very versatile. You can use it to make violets. It does go a long way. Okay, let me just clean this up. So with permanent alizarin crimson, keeping in mind, remember, it's a red that leans towards blue. What happens when you take something with blue and you add yellow? You get green. So let's see what's going to happen. So we have Hansa Yellow Light. I'm going to add a little bit of alizarin, a permanent alizarin crimson. It's dull, 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 dull. Let's add a bit more on this side. Very dull and transparent as well. Let's bring that down over here. I need more white. Okay. So that's with more yellow. That's adding more yellow to it. And taking this, let's just add, make a bigger mixture. Okay. Take some white. So it's a very dull mixture. It's pretty, don't get me wrong, it's pretty, but it's dull, not as intense. So see, it's very, very different. Just by shifting it, adding a little bit more yellow, you can make a huge difference. So that yellow, okay, was yellow that leans towards green, the Hansa yellow light. So you would obviously get different mixtures if you used like Hansa yellow medium and just Hansa yellow and yellow ochre and primary yellow and all these other colors. So that's where you could do this exercise using whatever crimson color you have and whatever yellows you have. So now if we take Indian yellow, which is a strong sunshine color, and we get obviously an orange. Let me shift that a little bit more. So you get an orange. I want to make that a bit more on the red side. So that definitely did lighten that up. Oh, I've got that color in there, so let's just use this. It's a peachy color. Peachy, peachy. Peachy keen hunky dory. So quite an interesting mixture. Looking at it right off the bat, it's got some portrait colors in there. Be good for still life as well. It is transparent, so the permanent alizarin crimson is a bit stronger with it. By adding more yellow to it, it shifts completely in a different direction. Indian yellow is not a color that I use a lot. I stick with the Diarylide yellow because it's semi-transparent. But I do have it if for some reason I have to use it. Then Diarylide yellow. So this is even more obvious. That's another strong. See, going right over the writing, you can see how transparent that is. Two semi-transparents. So let's just work with the white on that one. Oh, wow. I'm going to be shifting that with a bit more red up above. Let's take more red. And yes, it is lighter. It's still much more on the orange side. Still a dull orange. But what if we push that even further? I'll go right into this. Adding more red to it. And let's go to a swatch card. Let's see, I'll have to... So it is lighter. And then just by adding white, see the true underlying color. It's definitely a red that leans towards orange. It's close to this. Indian yellow, Diarylide yellow, very close. All right, so lightning for me, you know, depending on which way you want to take it. Looking at this, these are pretty close. Again, shifting. So Hansa Yellow Light is already a core color in my palette, and so is Diarylide Yellow. I get wide spectrum here. And lightning with white, I mean, this is the same and this is the same. So you can get quite a variety. So with this one here, this is close to this, although it is a bit more peachy. Do I need to have this in my palette? Not really. It's there if I need it, but I don't typically use this a lot. But I do have it. All right, so now I'm going to clean this up and going to get into some basic portrait colors, and then we're going to end this lesson. So in the final lesson, I'm going to show you how to make a very, very basic flesh tone color. And this is just going to be a lead up into one of the future videos. It's a portrait mixing workshop. And the reason why I added this in was going back to this exercise here is when I mixed white with transparent red iron oxide. Oh my God. And looking at this, so that would make a good portrait color. The permanent alizarin crimson with the Hansa Yellow Light for sure. Even with the Indian yellow for sure. But look how close that is. Look how close that is. Is it really necessary? You don't need Indian yellow. Not saying you don't have to have it. You don't have to have it depending on what you're painting. You may want to look at that. Even the Napthol Red Light, which is what we're going to be using. Where's my... There it is. So it's a little bit more red. Okay, so the reason why I did all these first and did this one is because you need to know about Napthol Red Light and what you can do with the yellows, about where it lies on the color wheel, because now in this exercise we're going to be introducing yellow oxide instead. Yellow oxide is opaque. I call it an earth tone. It's not typically an earth tone. The raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna, those are earth tones. This is PY42, so it's not typically an earth tone, but I do call it that. So I'm just going to quickly just put down the colors there, and let's take the yellow ochre with some white just to show you what you get. And let's take some Napthol Red Light with some white. You already know what you're going to get. Oops, too much water in my brush. Okay. A basic portrait mixture is white, yellow oxide, or yellow ochre, depending if you're using oils or acrylics. So titanium white, yellow oxide, Napthol Red Light. That's your basic flesh tone. And then the transparent red iron oxide. So let's make a portrait mixture. So you've got your white here. And I'm going to take some yellow oxide, and I'm going to make it, just lighten it up a little bit so you can see, and then just a touch of Napthol Red Light. And even with these, you can cool it with alizarin crimson. You can neutralize it with cerulean blue. You can neutralize it with a green. You can do so much. Very, very dark. And then go in with white, and then you adjust the values. Okay, you can make it more yellow or you can make it more red. So let's make it more yellow. Then add white. And doing these portrait colors, really works out well because you have white in every mixture. I didn't mix that very well. Okay. So then from there you can also shift it more on the red side. And you got to be careful with how you're using these colors as well. Oh, that's not quite enough, because they can get pretty strong pretty fast. Okay, so some areas you may have, you know, more pinky tones. It's all depending on your subject and whether you do it live or from a photo. Portraits are always nice doing it live, but you know, we don't all have a model available to us. I mean, you know, family member, but they're not going to want to sit for hours in the same lighting, in the same position. So, you know, learning, work from a photo, but working from life is always better. So there's some good intermediate portrait mixtures, and we can mix the whole thing together. Add a bit more yellow into that. And then that's where it would lean to, you know, olive colors. And see, there's another one. You'd lean toward olive colors. And if you want to brighten it, you add some Hansa yellow light. If you want to cool it down, you could add some alizarin crimson. Neutralize it, you can add a green or a blue. Okay. Now if we go with, and this is the one that really got me going on this whole thing, transparent red iron oxide made a really, really super easy flesh tone color. I couldn't believe how easy that was. Look how close that is to this. And I had to use red, Napthol Red light, yellow oxide, and titanium white to get to this. And I got this just using transparent red iron oxide. I've never done that before. And yeah, it works out really well. Is transparent red iron oxide in my limited palette of colors? Not really. I use it a lot for mixed media with the fluid acrylic line. And I use it for landscapes. So, you know, you'd have to look at what you're painting to see, but looking at this now, it really makes it a really good flesh tone. We can bump it up, you know, a bit more red if we need to. Makes it a bit more pinky. We can also knock it back down with some yellow oxide. And then to that, obviously, this is the last part. Add a bit of white to it. So you could do a lot with just that transparent red iron oxide. I didn't realize that I had never done anything with that before. So that leads me to believe now the time savings, and just by shifting it a bit. That doesn't mean that if I did a commission that I would use this. If I did a commission, I would still stick to my traditional colors that I would use for portrait mixing, because I have a system on how I mix my portrait colors. I'm not going to experiment on a commission using transparent red iron oxide. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't experiment in an art journal or doing a portrait study on my own. And you can also use this for, you know, sandy colors. You can neutralize that a little bit. If we hit that with a little bit, well, let's just pick ultramarine blue. I would go with probably more cerulean blue to neutralize that. Cools it down. Really cooled it down, neutralized it. And I didn't add as much white to this because I want to show you the vibrancies of the colors. If we go with phthalo blue, now phthalo blue and white is a very quick and easy cerulean blue. And I'll just neutralize this one here. So if we take white, oh, way too much. Never add white to phthalo blue. Always add phthalo blue to white. And let's just neutralize. Oh, is any of this wet? There we go. think I'm going to have to make a little bit more. And when you're doing color mixing, it is easier with oils because the oils don't dry, but this isn't too bad. There we go. So that makes a neutral. And this is closer to a neutral flesh tone as well. These are quite yellow, you know, for olive skin. You've got for more pinky skin for little areas, babies and stuff like that. That's more of a neutral. So for basic flesh tone, that's good. Then you think of skin, African American skin, Native American skin, Asian, you know, and you've got all these different ethnic groups for their skin colors, and that's where experiment with shifting the colors, get your raw umbers in there and stuff like that. So doing the work is what you're going to go, oh, like just with the transparent brown on oxide was an oh factor for me because I didn't even realize it. And looking at this now, this is a nice color right here for a flesh tone. Alrighty, so we did quite a bit. So without going out and buying any paint, use the paints, the colors that you have. So you're going to experiment with the reds, and then you're going to get your yellows out, and you can try some, you know, see about lightening and darkening with your black, and you know, do all these different the exercises that I did using the paints that you have. And again, all the colors that I had here, not all of them are in my limited palette, which is what I use all the time. The limited palette names may change depending on the medium. Between acrylics and oils, the names will change. But the actual concept of a red that leans towards orange and a red that leans towards blue, that will not change. A yellow that leans towards green and a yellow that leans towards orange, that will not change. Okay, so look at all these colors. So really, I mean, look how much money we've saved just by doing some mixing using basically limited palette colors. That's in my palette, that's in my palette, that's in my palette. That is not in my palette for portraits. It is for landscapes. That is Diarylide yellow. Carbon black I have for when I want opaque black. Phthalo green I don't use as much now because I can make it with phthalo blue and Hansa yellow light. So my palette is cutting down. So experiment, and see what you've got. Record it, make notes, and that way you can, as you start getting more practice, you'll see that, hey, instead of having, you know, 200 tubes or 200 bottles of cheap paint, I can cut it down to 10 to 15, and even that's a lot, 10 to 15 professional paints, and just by then having a limited palette doing more color mixing. In saying that, in oils, I studied portrait painting under John Howard Sandon, and he has his own oil line, and the oil colors are all pre-mixed for you. But taking those pre-mixed oils, I make them up myself. Okay, I mix those oil colors up myself. Don't have to buy his oils. I mix them up myself, and it's using the same colors that I just showed you. Okay, so there's no secrets being hidden. I'm going to cover that in the actual portrait lesson. And with those, with you know, cutting down the palette, I mean, using limited colors, minimal colors, your paintings are more cohesive. Okay, so if you use, you know, 6 colors in your painting and do a lot of color mixing, it's going to look so much better than using 20 pre-mixed colors for you, because you're not going to have an idea what's in them unless you know your pigment numbers. Alrighty, so I've got some cleaning up to do, and I would love to see pictures of your paint chart, so please share them with me in the private Facebook group. And if you have any questions or comments, please comment below the video. I read every single comment, and I reply to every single one as well. So until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.